Welcome to ACC Nation. That's Will Ogenin. And I'm Jim Quist. Mr. Burns. Every time I see that, it's like Mr. Burns.
Excellent.
Hey, talking about excellent, we have got WNBA draft news for you. That's going on while we're recording, so we're going to throw in the front end, and then we're going to catch at the back end of the podcast. We're going to catch everything that's been going on and update you a little further. But we're also going to be talking about baseball top 25 and a peek at the NFL mock drafts that are out. We've got a couple that are posted online at accnation.net. Interesting stuff and a slightly different approach on one of the mock drafts from the NFL. It's need versus best player available. And I really liked the way that laid out. And the more I read it, it was like, this is a lot better than just your typical mock draft. So you want to check that out, see what players are in that from the ACC +1, because we always include Notre Dame in everything we do football wise, whether or not they're in the conference or not. They play 5 games. I mean, they might as well be. So anyway, let's jump right into the WNBA. Well, this is an exciting time of year. This has been a grand women's basketball season overall, especially for the ACC. They had an excellent run. Didn't grab a title this year, but man, I tell you what, a couple teams certainly got to the point where it could have been. It could have been, and you can't go wrong with that sort of action. I'll tell you what, that's really standing out. Something's standing out to me here. On ESPN, they're covering the WNBA draft, and I think it's Holly Rowe, and she always interviews people. She does a good job of that. But Holly is not the tallest person in the world. So when she's standing beside somebody who's like over 6 foot, 6'5" in some instances with some of these players, it's interesting.
Yeah.
And suddenly it dawns on you just how tall some of the women players are. Not small by any stretch of the imagination. So some thoughts from you on the WNBA draft and maybe some players that you'd like to see in the draft from the ACC. I mean, there's a lot of them.
Well, as we mentioned, as of this moment, only one player has been drafted, and that's Emily Engstler of Louisville, who went fourth to the Indiana Fever. Obviously, Engstler was one of the catalysts of Louisville's run to the Final Four. Remember, she spent her first 3 years at Syracuse before transferring over to Louisville for this last season. The 4th pick overall, first team ACC on the defensive team, just outstanding career, and has parlayed that into the 4th pick of the WNBA draft. I know we have Elisa Kunin, who is from NC State, is on the board, and as we were talking, she's ESPN's best player available as of this moment, through 11 picks. So you would imagine she could be picked very soon as far as players from the ACC in the draft. I know there's plenty more. I know we've got Laura Kubaj of Georgia Tech is in the mix as well. She's someone that's on the high up. Aisha Shepard of Virginia Tech, who was, an outstanding player for the Hokies this year. She was their best player, and, have one of those players who just had almost unlimited range. So I would expect to see them drafted at some point tonight, maybe Maya Dodson of Notre Dame as well.
We'll find out as the program goes, and the draft is ongoing as we speak. As I mentioned just a moment ago, let's take a look at the top 5. And as you mentioned, at number 4 was Emily Engstler of Louisville, who's going to the Fever. Who else is in there? Well, going at number 1 in the first round is Ryan Howard, a 6'2" guard from Kentucky, going to the Dream. Number 2, Nalissa Smith from Baylor is going to the Fever, going to be joining Engstler. Number 3, Shakira Austin is from Ole Miss. She is going to the Mystics. Emily Engstler, as Will said, Louisville to the Fever. And number 5, Niara Sabali is from Oregon going to the Liberty. So there is, I tell you what, this is a premium crop of players going to the WNBA this season, and a lot of height, going this season, as opposed to some of what we saw in the past few seasons in the draft.
Yeah, and one of the funny things is I'm taking a look at this as we're talking about. There's only 12 picks in the first round, but just looking at all the trades, so like 8 of the 12 picks have been have involved were traded at some point by a team, and there's there's a lot of wheeling and dealing going on right now with the draft. Is some teams are maybe don't necessarily need a young player. They're probably in a prime position to compete for a WNBA championship. I know the team up the road from me, Minnesota, the Lynx, are one of those teams that are they traded away their first round pick, so they're looking to build. They've got a lot of veteran players that have been one of the better players in the league for quite some time. But yeah, this is an interesting draft as we are going here, as we just finished up the first round and with Nia Clouden of Michigan State.
As I said, we'll come back to that as we progress, and probably toward the end of the podcast, we'll update you on where the draft is at that point. And of course, we're going to have a story at accnation.net that will be coming up. Well, it'll be there, so you can go and check it out in addition to us with the podcast. Let's move over to D1 baseball action. Miami has taken a big leap in the latest D1 baseball top 25, moving up 6 spots to number 2 after a 3-game sweep, surprising sweep actually, of number 3 Virginia. Now, Virginia drops down quite a few notches. I think they dropped down to, well, we'll see here. Just
I think they basically switched spots with Miami.
Something pretty close.
I think they dropped to like 8.
Yeah, number 8. There we go. Yep, that's exactly what happened. They swapped spots. I had forgotten. In fact, I'd written that story earlier and totally forgotten where they had ended up. But let's take a look at what's going on baseball wise. The top 5 in college baseball. Tennessee is still at number 1 and of course, the SEC being at the top of college baseball is not surprising. And they have an incredible record, 31-1 so far this season.
The only surprise,
yeah,
I was going to say the only surprise is that it's not another SEC team from that state.
Or somebody else.
The ones who wear pajamas for uniforms.
Yeah, pajamas.
And have the most annoying fan in all of collegiate sports.
Oof, please. All right.
Sorry if everyone is triggered now.
Yeah, I think you just triggered me. That's for sure.
Sorry.
Anyway, I'm going to have that in my head for the rest of the night. Number 2 is Miami. They have a 26-6 overall record. Now let's take a look at, as you mentioned, Virginia drops down to number 8. Virginia has a 26-6 record as well. So they're on a little bit of a slide here just because of this weekend series loss to the Canes. But I don't see that as a big deal. Here's the one thing about baseball. Always have to remind people, and people who follow baseball on a regular basis understand this. Top 25 polls in baseball, college baseball specifically, volatile. I mean, you can lose like 3 or 4 games and poof, you're gone. You're totally off the top 25. Turn around in the next 2 weeks and be in the top 15.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's a little extreme, but nonetheless, that's not unusual. So seeing people popping up and down like this, don't get too excited about it. Okay. Number 9, Louisville has 23-8 record. Notre Dame is sitting at number 10, and they're at 20-5. Congratulations to the Hokies, who are popping into the chart, or to the top 25. I want to call this a music countdown. Boy, that's my back.
Were you Casey Kasem?
Yeah, in another life.
Yeah.
Number 21.
You're Casey.
Yeah. Virginia Tech, 20-8 record. Not doing too bad. Now, here's the bad part of this top 25 is that, well, no, first of all, let's do some good news first about the top 25. Okay. Vanderbilt dropped out.
Yeah.
So I just countered that thing you put
Yeah.
in there. All right.
You were the bearer of good news, Jim.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Florida State, NC State, North Carolina. Sorry, I'm the bearer of bad news now. All three teams dropping out of the top 25, having some mid-season issues.
Well, did you see what the NC State, for example, they lost 2 or 3 to Virginia Tech, but did you see the Friday night game?
No, did not.
It was a football score, 21-10.
Wow.
Yeah, the Hokies offense has, they put up some big games this week, and they put up 8 in the win on Saturday, and then they lost on Sunday 10-3, but the Hokies offense has been pretty strong throughout the season. Pitching is, they're improving a little bit. But yeah, that was a surprising effort. And talking about that Virginia Miami series, that was almost like a crash back down to earth series when you look at the Virginia offense couldn't really get a whole lot going. It was just a credit to Miami's pitching, and then I think they had a brief lead on Sunday, but next thing you know, Miami just blew the game wide open with a big inning, and next thing you know, it was 15-5.
Yeah, that got ugly. And Sunday games are like that sometimes. It's like you're into the rotation and everything is like it's gone.
Yeah, and Virginia's been trying to tinker with their rotation. They had a starter Sunday who started originally out of the bullpen, pitched a really nice game in his first effort. It was a Saturday game against, I can't remember who it was. It was a couple of weeks ago, and then because he had a no-hitter for a while, and then he started last weekend, pitched all right, and then just kind of had a rough outing this time. So they're trying to figure out like the Sunday pitcher right now.
Yeah, and it's mid-season.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Like you said, we're 30 something games into the season. We're basically halfway there already, which just feels weird. But we're what, 2 months from Omaha?
Yeah. So I mean, this is certainly not something to get upset about. But if you start seeing injuries and stuff popping up on a regular basis, then you get a little concerned about what's happening. But I don't think that's the case with any of these teams right at this point. I think they're just, you hit mid-season things like this happening. I don't understand it all. I've never coached baseball, played it, but it's a difference between being a player, as we talked about in prior podcasts, between being a player and being a coach. I don't understand enough of the mindset of dealing with arms and stuff like that. I don't get that. So, don't ask me to ever coach. Hey, you got a T-ball team? I'm right there. No problem.
And let me give you another team to keep an eye on. Wake Forest, or as they call themselves now, Rake Forest. They just came off a 3-game sweep of Duke, put up 16 runs in the finale on Sunday. Last weekend, the previous weekend, they faced the Boston College, put up 20 runs in a game on the Saturday game and 15 in the Friday game. They've been lights out at the dish. Pitching has been suspect at times, but they're 9-6 in the league, 25-7 overall. Doing just like I said, their hitting has been just outstanding. They're definitely a team you want to keep an eye on as we're getting into the second half of the season.
Now, there's some irony involved here because our buddy Aaron Fitt from D1 Baseball, who joins us every year to talk about what's going to happen in the ACC. As a matter of fact, if you haven't listened to that podcast, go back and listen to it. Just see where we are and what Aaron's thoughts are on the season overall. He was always hot on Wake Forest. He was like for 2 years, he was hot on. This year, he goes, nah, you guys have burnt me. So I'm not going down this path. The irony is that Wake Forest is probably going to come out of nowhere this season and deliver.
Yeah, he jumped off of them, and then they finally start having the big year.
Yep. That would be too funny. Aaron would be sitting there just
shaking his head like you are right now.
Yes, probably more extreme though. Let's get into the NFL draft and some mock information here. We've heard a lot about more so quarterbacks, I think, than anybody, but quarterbacks are just the flash, the glitz of what's going on in drafts. They're kind of center of attention, but sometimes they're not the people who are going first or the most coveted by NFL teams. That appears to be the case this season again, because quarterbacks typically don't go number one. I mean, sometimes they do, sometimes somebody's foolish enough to waste a bunch of picks.
Yeah.
Going real high.
And something about that. I think we both know something about that. Taking quarterbacks way too early and forcing them in when they're not ready.
Yeah.
You with Mitch Trubisky, Vikings with Christian Ponder.
Yeah. No, too well.
Yep.
I don't believe it's a good thing to do. Anyway.
Yeah.
So.
And a lot of times they're like I said, they're pushed before they're ready.
Right. And we'll talk a little bit about the potential for something similar in just a minute, but not with a high pick. I think it's reasonable, but we'll see. The NFL's Rhett Lewis, and this is the guy who did the need versus best player available analysis. And again, I think this is a great way of looking at stuff because you start balancing things out. And I think you're getting the perspective of the team rather than, somebody like me saying, well, I think that my team needs this or needs that. And I think this is a great player and is high up on the board. Well, that's the guy that we're going to go after. Which makes absolutely no sense sometimes, right? It's not always the best player. So you get attracted to the flash and the trash. So here's some of the players that he has going. And at number 2 in the first round, he's got Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame, who's a safety, going to Detroit. So that's his high pick out of our ACC +1 selection of players. Again, this is a need versus best player available. So it's kind of hard when you first look at this. You kind of shake your head and go, I don't. Kyle Hamilton.
Well, yeah, and safety is a big deal.
Very
yeah, especially when you're in today's day and age, when you're going up, especially when you're going up against teams that are very pass heavy. You'd be going into the NFC North where you're facing, drama diva Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins. Who's another drama diva, but nowhere near the level Rodgers is.
Moneybags.
Yeah. And Justin Fields, but we won't.
Yeah.
Move along. Yeah. You're like the stormtrooper in a Star Wars episode 4. Move along.
Doing the.
Yep.
Anyway, so we digress as always.
Going off the rails again.
Anyway, your point being there that I don't know what your point is exactly, but I kind of lost track of things. We want to realize.
Welcome to ACC Nation, where nothing makes sense. But no, my point being, that's even in other mock drafts I've seen, Hamilton go there. I've seen because he's just a really elite level talent who I think is pretty pretty safe by standards of of being ready. And it's not like Detroit has much on their defense right now. I think he'd fit in pretty well there.
Number 3, we're going to NC State for an offensive tackle by the name of Ike Ekwonu, who is headed to Houston, according to the projection by Lewis. I think this is an excellent pick at number 3 in the first round. Yeah, I'd go here.
Yeah, and I would echo that. Houston needs pretty much everything on their roster.
Mm-hmm.
So, you did draft a quarterback last year in Davis Mills. So you need someone to protect him. So why not get a tackle who could help protect, protect that quarterback? I think picking an offensive lineman in this situation is a really good idea.
Here's the scenario that I was referring to, Will. We'll see how this all lays out. This is pick number 19 in the first. Going to New Orleans, Sam Howell out of North Carolina. Now, here's the scenario for people who don't know, and you can fill people in on this, because I think this is the progression that we were sort of alluding to. They just signed Jameis Winston. Mm-hmm. And he's projected to be their starter, but I guess the idea is that Sam Howell is coming in, sitting for a year, and we know how that works
sometimes.
And he's the future for the Saints.
And it's an interesting idea, because I'm higher on Sam Howell than I think a lot of people are. I just felt like a lot of the issues last year weren't necessarily his fault. I mean,
right.
when you're running for your life constantly like he was, then yeah, your stats aren't going to be as good, especially when you lost the amount of talent that they did as well, all the running backs and the receivers. And a lot of the time he had to throw a short to Josh Downs, because he was he was the only real option available on that offense. And I think this is a smart idea for New Orleans. Obviously, like I said, you re-sign Jameis Winston. Now, he's not the future. Absolutely not. He may not even be the present for all we know. Sam Howell, I think, is got some potential there. I think, like I said, he does need to marinate. So I'm hoping that he doesn't have to start right away. But yeah, I think this is a strong pick. And I know we haven't gotten to that point yet, but I'm a little surprised that someone else's name hasn't been mentioned.
We'll get to that in a moment, but I think you have some updated news from the WNBA draft.
Let me pull up my news here. Oh, we do. Back-to-back ACC picks have gone in, and pick 16 and 17 for the fourth and fifth picks of the second round, where guard Kiana Smith of Louisville has been drafted, and following her at pick 17, Elisa Kunin of NC State. So Kunin to Seattle. Kiana, I lost my page and don't know where she went to, but she got drafted as well.
She'll find her way. Don't worry.
Yeah. She knows where to go. I do not, because I accidentally clicked off the screen.
That's okay. Sorry to throw that one by. I thought you had it right, going. So I just saw.
No, I switched the channel actually, but it was at a commercial and never turned it back.
Yeah. Oh, I saw Lisa pop up there. So anyway, I think this is a really good move by New Orleans if this happens. Mm-hmm. This is a projection, folks. So this is a mock draft. All right. But if this were to occur, I think with the right protection and the right weapons, first of all, Jameis Winston could be a quarterback for a couple of years. He has potential. He is good at what he does. He has some faults that I think need to be corrected. Whether or not you can correct him at this point in his career is anybody's guess. Hal coming in has immense potential. I don't think he has the type of faults that Jameis has, but New Orleans is my number 2 team in fandom. Chicago being first, New Orleans being second. And it's only because my wife is from New Orleans. But you sort of get tied in there, and there's some familiarity. So I always root for New Orleans after Chicago blows chunks, which they do every year. But I think this is a good move. Now, we haven't gotten to the guy that you're talking about yet, but we will in just a few moments, but not in this first round projection. That's the surprise. Number 26 in the first round to Tennessee is Florida State edge Jermaine Johnson II. I think that's a great projection. Tennessee certainly could use that skill set, and Jermaine Johnson is, I think, a great pick.
This is interesting because I've seen Johnson going as high as 12 to the team that's 20, 25 minutes away from me here in Minneapolis to the Vikings, which I would love that because that's a need position.
Right. Great.
But we remember Johnson just absolutely just toying with offensive linemen all over the place. Throughout the season, he was the star of the defense. And remember, he transferred because Georgia had so many other good players that he never got on the field. And look what happened when he got his chance.
Yep.
He was defensive player of the year.
and this should be a lesson. What Will just laid out, this should be a lesson to you if you're a player or the parents of players. It's grand when you look at these big programs that have a lot of success. And I'm saying Alabama, Georgia, even Clemson in some degree. But if you want to play and you've got talent, you really have to stand out. You have to work so much harder if you're at Alabama to be that guy. And, it's a crapshoot as to whether or not you're gonna see any playing time at all. So, for me, if I knew I had some talent and people around me were not blowing smoke up my rear end, and they said, you got some talent, maybe you should consider some place where you're definitely going to get a start, I would be looking at maybe that next tier and saying, where do I get on the field and make a contribution? Just saying, at some point. And look, when it comes down to the NFL, the NBA, the WNBA, any of the professional leagues at all, you're not getting that much of an advantage when you have my name and then Alabama after it. You're not getting that. I mean, look at the people who are being drafted. They're from all over the place. If you're good at what you do, you will get drafted no matter where you're playing, but you better be on the field playing and getting some time in. You're not getting it from the big boys. I'll tell you that right now. Unless you're something
and that's the beauty of the transfer portal is you can go somewhere else and play right away. And, the ability to have that option to go somewhere else right away and get that immediate playing time is exactly what this is for.
Yeah. I won't get into the women's basketball thing, but that's something recently that occurred in the ACC. Great example. Anyway, at number 27, going to Tampa Bay, our buddy Chris is going to be happy about this. Out of Clemson, the cornerback Andrew Booth. I think that's a great addition for if he indeed goes to Tampa Bay. Again, all of these are projections by the NFL's Rhett Lewis, and you can read that and find a link to his story at accnation.net. So let's jump into 3 rounds coming from CBS Sports, Ryan Wilson. And here's an interesting thing. Almost all of these players are in the first round. There are none in the third. So there's like this huge drop off. So basically what you're saying is anywhere from 4 to 7 or UDFA. So at number 1, Icky.
Mr. Icky, yes.
That's right. From NC State. He has him projected to Jacksonville, and they certainly could help out Trevor Lawrence quite a bit there, I would think.
Yeah, and he laid out his reasoning is because he's drafting on need and not necessarily best player available. And I don't know, we have no idea what Jacksonville's going to do right now. We're actually a couple of weeks out of the draft. A lot of them still think they're going to take Aiden Hutchinson. So, but like I said, you can't go wrong with drafting a solid of tackle that will, protect your quarterback.
At least you have a real coach there now.
Yeah, that's 100% true.
Wow. The first quarterback in this projection, this mock draft, is Liberty's Malik Willis. And Willis has been generating tons of interest over the last couple of weeks. It has not burned off one bit. He has really been the chatter guy, and with good reason. He is a stupendous quarterback, and I think given the right situation is really going to make a big difference for whoever picks him up. So
yeah, I think he's one of those players that has been just flying up radars because people see him as the guy who maybe has the highest ceiling of all the quarterbacks in this draft. He's definitely needs to be in a position where he's groomed, and he's not gonna be able to play right away. He's still really raw, but I think he had going to Seattle in this instance. He's going to sit behind Drew Lock, which, he's not that great of a quarterback either. So I worry he'd be put in a position to play a lot sooner than he's ready to be.
Right.
But, it's still, it's if you feel like you can work for a year with Drew Lock and have Malik Willis marinate for a year, perfect.
Yeah, that would be great. I would have loved to have seen him behind Russell Wilson for a year or two. Because that would have been a great influence, a great guidance for Malik to learn and to grow into the franchise quarterback that they already had in Russell, and they could have made that transition because at some point, he's going to retire. So.
For sure, and he obviously he's off to Denver now. So
yeah. Boy, he'll retire quickly there. Sorry. I mean, and never mind. In the first round at 11 is Notre Dame's Kyle Hamilton. He is projected to go to Washington. The Commanders have a lot of needs, and this is one of them. So,
well, their biggest need is an owner, but
yeah, I'm not going to argue. I don't think most people will argue about that. That's not
everyone outside the Snyder family.
Yeah, it's not the only issue, but that's one of the.
Yeah, that's one of them.
Yeah. Oh, why do we have problems like that? Round 114 is Florida State's Jermaine Johnson II, and Johnson is projected to go to Baltimore, which I think is a great fit for him as an edge. Will make a huge difference for the Ravens. They need some help there. Not to take him away from your beloved Vikings, but
yeah, I mean, like I said, he's been as high as 12, like I said, to the Vikings, but I think he's a solid first round pick and someone who I think, you're drafting him with the idea of being able to play, day one. Yeah. Maybe not necessarily as a starter, but definitely in the rotation.
Yeah, he'll get in there at the minimum a couple of games into the season.
Yeah, as a start, maybe as a starter. Yeah, we'll see.
Going in the first round at number 25 is Clemson's Andrew Booth. He is projected to go to the Texans, and Texans need all the help they can get. They're kind of in a rebuild mode. Any and all talent, welcome. This would be a good addition for them. Now, the guy that you were talking about earlier and was wondering, what's the deal? Where is he? Here's the interesting thing. Reading up on the notes, Will, I'm seeing that people are talking about him being, and him, I'm not going to say who it is just yet, but everybody can figure this out because we haven't mentioned his name yet. And you're going, where is him? He is projected as high as in the top 10 in the first round, but also in the bottom rung of the first round. There's no happy median here. It's like nobody knows where to put him. I believe that this gentleman, the part of the reason is that he's not what I would call a flashy quarterback. He's a workman. You know, he's a blue collar quarterback. He knows the game. He just goes out and he does it, and he'll work his tail off. But there's nothing flashy about it. Kenny Pickett. This is who we're talking about right here, Kenny Pickett, and they've got him projected to go to Detroit. Now that's
interesting.
Yeah. Detroit needs a quarterback, to be honest with you.
Yeah. No, I'm not disputing that. It's just so weird because you look at all the mock drafts and you see, and we've gone through two of them where he hasn't been going. He's the last pick of the first round in this one, but in the other one he wasn't mentioned in the first round. But you've also seen mock drafts where he's going up, as high as number 6, I believe it was, to Carolina.
Yep.
Because their coach is on the hot seat. So you look at them as a potential pick there because they say their coach is on a hot seat. It's not like Sam Darnold has exactly lit the world up and has probably looked worse than ever, but he is not going to be there long. And I say I think the drafting him makes up that high makes you think he's ready to play right away. Detroit getting him at 32 in this instance, and it tells you that what, maybe we can get by with Jared Goff for another year or two and give Pickett a little more time. I mean, a lot of people consider him the most ready to play now quarterback among all the ones that are out there. But I'm just, I think his ceiling is limited in my opinion.
Yeah. I don't see him as, and I hesitate to try to pull up somebody who I think fits the mold, but I think Kenny Pickett is a really decent quarterback. Is he spectacular? No. Will he win games for you? Sure. You put the right people around him, the right weapons, you're going to have a winner. And sometimes all it takes is not a flashy quarterback. Nobody in the NFL needs an Aaron Rodgers on every team. Okay. I mean, you just don't. You don't need
Rodgers.
You don't need. I thought that sounded like you might have been feeding the porcelain god there for a moment. So you don't need a quarterback like that. Sometimes all you need is a solid offense and a solid defense and some special weapons on both, that are standout players. And your quarterback just grinds it out. You just make it happen. And that's how you win. And, there's some quarterbacks over history that have been like that. And I think you can continue to run an NFL team like that if you're okay with it. my thought is that Pickett is going to be a great quarterback who'll probably be around for quite a while. Will he be the first name that rolls off your tongue when you're talking about you know, best quarterbacks in the NFL? Probably not. But there's plenty of quarterbacks like that in the NFL right now who go out and win games every
Yeah.
week.
Yeah,
So
they're not great, but they have everything around them to win. And we see that. There are certain teams that just, they have the talent, like I say, a running back at receiver, they have a good offensive line, or they have an elite defense that they don't need uh an elite quarterback to run everything. We've seen, throughout the years, some of the Ravens with Trent Dilfer, for example, when he won a Super Bowl. He's not an elite quarterback, but they had one of the best defenses ever
right.
as well. And you're looking at, I mean, I'm trying to think of teams off the top of my head that fit that, but none of them. I mean, New England, that's just Belichick being Belichick. I mean, they don't have a lot of talent. Mac Jones is a pretty good quarterback, but I don't think I think they're just succeeding because of their head coach is probably the best to ever do it.
Was a very sharp dude. I mean, people don't like him. Some people do, but it's like Krzyzewski. You can hate Mike Krzyzewski all you want, but he's a hell of a coach. I mean, probably one of the best college basketball coaches. He and Dean Smith and several others that fit into that category. They're exceptions. And when you have a good coach, it's amazing what you can do with little or no talent. So let's move into our next list here. We only have two. This is the thing that blows me away. I said earlier, we have nobody in the third round, but in the second round, we have two. Coming in at number 39, pick number 39 in round two is Boston College's Zion Johnson, offensive guard, and he goes to my beloved Bears.
Bears.
We need him.
I've seen some mocks, have him as a first round pick too. I know he did really well in Senior Bowl stuff. He's, it's not like, his guard is not exactly a position that generally, you generally draft highly for, but I think if I remember correctly, I know our friend AJ Black would be all over me if I was wrong, but I think he can play pretty much everywhere along the offensive line. I know he never really played center, but he's taken, I know during the Senior Bowl stuff, he was taking snaps at center.
Yeah.
You need a versatile guy.
If you're a guard, most of those guards are they've had their, oh, I almost said something I was going to regret.
Even if you did, you could have cut it out.
Well, probably. Yeah, snapping. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, yeah. God, I can't believe I almost did that. Let's move on now. Round two, number 43. And the last person on this list, who would you think? Who did I miss?
Yeah, I'm surprised. It's taken, we talked about him in the first round, but he's going to pick 43 here, Mr. Sam Howell.
That's right.
To the Atlanta Falcons, which I think would be a really good spot for him. Because again, they traded Matt Ryan, they signed Marcus Mariota. He's going to be the short-term guy there.
Yeah, very short.
Howell can groom for a little while and eventually be the starter in a year or two. And obviously Atlanta's rebuilding, so that's a good person to build around. Like I said, I like him. I think he's better than where he's being drafted, but like I said, you had such a down year last year that his stock is just kind of plummeted. If he would have come out after last year, he was an easy first round pick.
Well, here's the thing I want to remind everybody of. We always talk highly of Brady and Rodgers.
We talk highly of Rodgers.
Well, we don't, but we don't. But
yeah, you and I don't.
I will give this to him. He's a hell of a quarterback. There's no doubt about it. He is a once in a generation talent. Here's the thing: these guys weren't drafted high.
He
So
was what, a late first round pick, and
Brady,
even sat for a few years.
Brady was like,
Brady was a 6th round pick.
yeah. So, you know, and again, this is, you can say that's an anomaly. It really
Yeah.
isn't. A lot of great players are coming out of these later rounds, third,
Hmm.
fourth, fifth, fifth, sixth, seventh.
Yeah.
There's some fantastic players that come out of there. They either didn't play for, an elite
Yeah.
squad and get a lot of publicity, didn't get
Yeah.
enough,
And
whatever.
you get put in the right position and you can succeed easily.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes it's not all about talent, it's about fit.
Yeah. Um, So that's a look at that. And if you want to take a look at that, again, take a look at accnation.net. Story is up there now, NFL Draft 22. And we've got the latest in baseball is there. And we will have all of the latest on the WNBA draft up as well. So you can take a look at who's who. But let's go back over that and finish up the program, Will, because we're getting further into the, I think we're past the second round now, are we not?
Yes, we're actually almost done with the draft.
Okay.
There's just a handful of picks left. So
Three.
let's start from the beginning.
All right.
Louisville's Emily Inkster went number 4 to Indiana, the Fever. She was the only one in the first round that was drafted among ACC schools, but a lot of them in the second round. As we mentioned before, Kiana Smith of Louisville went at 16 overall to the LA Sparks.
Mhm.
Elisa Kunin of NC State went 17 to Seattle, and joining her in the pick afterwards is Laura Kubaj of Georgia Tech, who went 18th. Going at 22 is Kayla Jones, a forward out of NC State, to the only team in Minnesota that can actually win a championship, the Lynx.
The Lynx. The Lynx.
Yep. And Aisha Shepard went at 23, the guard from Virginia Tech, to Las Vegas. And then into the third round, we have Maya Dotson of Notre Dame was drafted as well. And like I said, we are just a couple of picks from the end here.
Yep, just a couple. But anyway, I tell you what, we're at the end of the program, and there's only 2 left. But so here's the deal: we'll have that story up on the website accnation.net, and you can go check that out, and you'll know the complete list of ACC teams, the players that have made it to the WNBA. And there's a nice list as you ran down there, Will, especially in the second. It was chock full of great players. And in fact, I think just down the line, there's just superb talent coming out of the ACC this year. Very excited for all of the women that have made it that far. It's kind of a once in a lifetime dream.
Yeah.
See that kind of stuff.
And just to kind of note it as we are wrapping up, the season does start on May 6th, so not that far away.